So now I'm going to start putting in some petals. First I'm using this 0.2 or just a 2 round brush. And I'm going to start with my, I think I might start with the ones farthest away. So I'm getting an orangey color. I'm just going to kind of look at it and lay in some paint based on what I see. And then I'm going to push the paint back towards the end here for my petal, because this petal kind of has this look to it. And then I'm really just painting right over what I already started. The first part was kind of just an underpainting, just to kind of give me an idea. And I'm going to keep working with each petal until I feel like it's blended the way I want it to. So you kind of just work wet into wet and try not to get frustrated, but just moving the paint around. And even if you have to get another paintbrush to kind of soften those edges, that's okay too. It's kind of one of those things where you just have to really work with paint long enough to really understand what it's going to do. So I'm just going to kind of tap in some of these edges with this brush here just to kind of soften things up. So this is just a dry brush and it's kind of got hardish bristles. And like I said, I'm just kind of tapping because I don't want to remove the paint. That's one thing too, is wet paint can just pull right off of there as well, so that's not exactly what you're wanting. So I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to keep adding petals based on what I see, the shapes that I see. And it's still, like we talked about before, pretty impressionistic, so it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to look just like a flower, it's just you're laying down brush strokes based on what you're seeing, if that makes sense. So then I'm going to tap again just to kind of clean up those edges. If you're feeling frustrated, this is probably kind of an advanced or intermediate lesson, and so don't let it bug you. Just keep working the steps, because really this is just shapes that you're painting on there, and they can look childlike almost, and then when you step back and you look at it from a farther away perspective, they look better. Okay, so I'm going to leave that like that for right now. I'll move on to another flower. So again, I'm just going to lay in some petals. Look at the shape, the farthest away, and then move closer on this one down to the center. So this is more of a round. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm doing this flower. It's hard to show you from that perspective. So I'm just looking and painting what I observe. And just kind of doing it in a very loose manner. That's one thing about painting, is that sometimes the looser the better. So if it looks like you really didn't put a lot of effort into it, like you were able to just throw paint on there and and it looks great, then that actually is a good thing. So you don't want it to look like you worked so hard at it. You want it to look like you just are enjoying what you're doing, laying some paint down, you know, just moving your brush here and there. And then we're just going to keep doing that with the flowers. So you're just going to keep looking, you're going to keep adding more color and more details, but not making it perfect, not worrying about that, but just your impression of something. So I'm still looking at the photograph, and I'm just trying to get an impression of something. I'm just going to go ahead and keep painting and then letting you know if there's something that I feel like you're missing. So these flowers are whiter on the top and then they fade into a darker color as they go towards the bottom. I'm working with my paint, trying to keep it wet and not dry. So I'm kind of working wet into wet. Acrylics are harder because they do dry so quickly. So if somebody was used to oils, then they might be really frustrated with acrylics. I add a little circle flower here, a little bud. So this flower has lots and lots of petals. So I'm not adding any, you know, huge amount of details. I'm just looking at, okay, this is lighter here. You know, that's the other thing you really need to look at. Lights and darks, you know, where is it darker? Where is it lighter? It's darker on this side here. And I don't want my petals to, I don't want to cue in on one petal and just really focus on that petal. That's something that's important to remember, because a lot of times when we're beginning, we sit and we look at a picture so deeply to try to get it just perfectly exactly like that thing, whatever that thing is that you're working with, and it ends up not looking like it. It almost looks better when we just loosely throw some stuff in there and hope for the best and just enjoy ourselves. You know, and you want to move your brush in the direction of the flowers or the petals. You know, what are they doing? So as you can see, I'm just focusing on dark and light. I'm not too concerned about looking exactly at what is going on here. I'm just I think this is a lot like the watercolor lessons when it comes to control. I think sometimes we really want to control things and we really just can't. The last few weeks have been a lesson to me about staying busy, trying to control my emotions, trying not to grieve. And you know what I've really learned is that you have to stay in the moment. You have to go ahead and just allow whatever is happening to happen and not try to control it, because it's way worse otherwise. The grief, my stomach aches, all of that was terrible based on the fact that I was just trying to avoid it and avoid what I can't control. And I feel like I just keep coming back to that same lesson about control and about allowing life to happen, allowing God to do what He's doing in our lives, and just trusting and trusting the process. I think with art, you know, part of it is trusting yourself. You know, the more you have confidence and the more you can just trust yourself to paint, trust yourself to do what needs to be done, I think the more it just comes out easily. You know, the more you just let go and put the brush strokes on there and are happy with just enjoying the process, the more you're gonna get out of it. Because honestly, if you're frustrated with it, you're not getting anything out of it anyway. So you might as well just enjoy it. You might as well just paint and throw some paint on there and hope it looks good, but not worry about whether it's sellable or whether other people like it or whether it's for anybody else, because ultimately it's not for anybody else. Ultimately it's for you. And so you just, you know, need to look at it as a process that you're doing, sitting down and looking at something and laying down color, not worrying about whether it looks just like the picture or whether it looks like your friend's work that you're working side by side. It's not going to. It's going to be your own, and it's going to be different. You're not going to be perfect. And the sooner that we really figure that out. So I'm just putting a few petals back here on these flowers, some lighter colors, like we talked about before, but more impression of something rather than an actual something. I think part of it is not having an expectation out of life. That's something that I'm learning. You know, I expected that things would go a certain way in my life, and they really haven't. And it's the same thing with painting. You know, one of my frustrations with this last couple of weeks is I really just wanted to do what I had originally intended for this class, and I was frustrated because I just didn't want to. I felt like A, you wouldn't benefit from it because you pretty much learned it in the butterfly lesson. B, I've already painted those paintings and I just really didn't want to repaint them. That was something I really didn't want to do. It just wasn't what I was excited about, and so I think that that's an important lesson too, is just to, as an artist, paint what you're excited about. One of the hardest things for artists to do is commissions, because they're no longer painting what they want to paint, they're painting what somebody else wants them to, even if it's something that they already have painted before that someone's requesting. That's still their style. It absolutely has a mental thing that goes along with it. That's difficult. So just keep adding lighter and lighter at the top, or in the areas that you can tell the light's hitting. For me, a lot about art, a lot of what I'm doing is based on my love of color. So a lot of times I'm more thinking about the colors than I am about the actual object, because I love the color, I love what it does together, I love thinking about color theory, and so a lot of times that's really what I'm painting in these paintings, is the color. Okay, I think I'm going to go in with some lighter greens now in the background. I'm going to mix together, I really love teal and yellow mixed together as a green, because it's just this really super hot green color. It's not as intense as some of the darker greens or the mixed greens. And I'm just going to add texture in the background. So I'm just going to tap my brush in the back, and so I'm mixing it on my palette first. And I'm just throwing in some dots essentially here and there in between, and I'm letting that other darker green still live there. And I'll probably put in some white after I do this layer of this medium green. I'll probably throw in a layer of a lighter green, so I'll just mix some white into this color that I've created here. You don't want a consistent dot pattern you kind of want to move around and make funny movements. You don't want to just go or it's going to look very, it's not going to look very organic. It's just going to look very boring, I guess, and not as realistic. Not, this isn't very realistic, but you know what I'm saying. Sometimes I even just use my fingers to blend it. I might just, you know, add a couple green dots in the sky. I think I'm going to add a little bit of Hooker's Green to my palette, the original green color that I used, and mix it with the color that I made just to make sure that these colors are blending together well. So I'm not covering what I just did, I'm just adding to it. I forgot my coffee. It's a crime. Now it's cold. So it's been fun for me to enjoy you guys and to have this time together and enjoy our birds and the bees. It's been a huge blessing to me to have something to do, that God provided this for me in my time of total misery, really. I mean, you know, let's just be honest that what has happened to our family is a nightmare. And that first night, I really didn't think I was ever going to survive it. But we're here, we're alive, God's bringing us through it, and He can bring you through what you're going through right now as well. I know it seems like you won't ever find joy again sometimes when you're going through your hard things, but I've learned through this that even in the midst of what is your own personal nightmare, God will bring you through it, and if you allow Him, He will give you something to do because of it, something that will help other people, because ultimately we need to love each other and be there for each other. And so if you're going through something really difficult, there's other people out there that really need to hear how to get through it. So I'm going to go ahead and lay in some more stems based on how my flowers ended up. So some of my original stems kind of don't work with where my flowers ended up. So I'm just going to kind of work with that for a minute. Same with the other stuff. I'm really kind of just adding an impression of stems. I might even add some little leaf patterns too. Just some bigger I'm going to add a little bit of dark to that center area. I'm not going to use black. I'm going to use very dark blue because there's a lot of oranginess in this flower here, and blue and orange complement each other. And so I try to keep in mind the color wheel when I'm working This is going to be a pretty intense color here, so I may or may not tone it down. I may like it just because everything else is so soft. Let's see. But I will feel like I need more than just that one spot of it, so if I do keep it that intense, I think I need to add some more here and there. Just to carry the eye through the painting. Okay, so I'm going to leave those to dry. I think we'll come back for the final details, and I'll stop this video so you don't have too long of one video.